So when you look at the book, you will see that there are 3 chapters. I don't want to call the first part an autobiography, but there's a chapter on my childhood years, a chapter on Toyota, a chapter on McCarthy, and then after that, a number of chapters on business lessons I learned and my approach to leadership. And then I couldn't resist the temptation to write a chapter on service excellence. Frick referred to my love for marketing. There's a chapter about leadership and marketing excellence. And then we face many priorities in South Africa. So I added a chapter on the role that we can play as business leaders in South Africa. Do we have a responsibility to join hands with government in our efforts to create a better life for all? And then the last chapter deals with just sort of closing thoughts on leadership. So that's the structure of the book. So let me get into the book, and I'll be brief when I talk about the personal side of the equation. Should you read the chapter about my childhood years, you will see that I grew up in the thriving metropolis of Bultfontein. Now for you, who knows where Bultfontein is? Yes, I am so impressed. So my late father was a school principal, and in the book I pay tribute to him. He was the head of the household, as I said, and my mother was the heart of the household. I learned an enormous amount from her, even today, and for all the days of my life I will continue to sit in her shadow. The other thing you will read in that chapter is that I've been a car enthusiast all my life. I just love cars. And therefore, from a very early age, I was determined to go and work in the motor industry. So in 1973, I joined Toyota, and it was just such an incredible day. I have vivid memories of that first day, the excitement, the sense of anticipation. I became the market research manager very soon thereafter, but I never saw myself as a business leader. I saw myself as an analyst, as a backroom person. And then in August 1976, I attended a course called Executive Motivation. And the peer assessment was done. It was part of that particular program. And one person who participated in that assessment of me was the managing director of Toyota at the time, Colin Adcock. And then I was so surprised because my peers, including Colin Adcock, put me into the leadership category. And that was a defining moment in my life because I started seeing myself in a different light. I hope you will enjoy the Toyota chapter where everything by and large kept going right. And then I decided to explore new horizons after 22 years at Toyota. And I joined McCarthy with stars in my eyes. It was a blue chip company, the largest motor retailer in the country, one of the 10 largest motor retailers in the world. I thought my quality of life would be better. Like many of the young people, I'm sure some of them are in the audience, I battled with work-life balance. The thriving blue chip company became a slop chip company because of problems on the non-motor side of the business. The share price plummeted from 21 Rand to 18 cents. I woke up one morning on the 1st of October 1999. The previous day, the chairman of the board had asked me to take over as Group Chief Executive. We had 15,000 people. We had 1,100 retail outlets, and we owed 8 banks 1.5 billion rand. But the story has a happy ending because the company was successfully recapitalized and restructured, and 2 years ago it celebrated its centenary. Chapter 1, 2, and 3, childhood, Toyota, McCarthy, just to provide context for the rest of the book. Chapter 5, I try to distill all the business lessons I learned. I'm going to lift out just 2 out of the 13 important lessons I learned. I'm sure you're going to agree with me. First lesson I'm going to lift out: without talented, knowledgeable, committed people, you can achieve nothing. Those people should be listed on the balance sheet as appreciating assets. They represent the most effective antidote to tough times. Second lesson I want to lift out: if you want to be successful in business on a sustainable basis, do business in an ethical manner. Chapters 5 to 8 contain a roadmap for leadership. In chapter 5, I deal with the leadership environment. It's very challenging, but also fascinating, in particular in South Africa, ever-changing, very complex. In chapter 6, I deal with the attributes that are necessary, in my view, and the skills that leaders require. And in the next chapter, I paint a picture of effective leaders in action from my perspective. Next chapter, leadership lessons I learned. And then last chapter in that particular roadmap for leadership, I explained why I believe in the philosophy of servant leadership. If one wants to lead effectively, one has to regard leadership as a responsibility and not as a right. Second lesson that I allude to in the book is I realized early on in my career that there's a big difference between managing people and leading people. And leadership is the umbrella concept. Leadership is to give direction. Leadership is to have the courage to go first. Leadership is to influence, inspire, provide energy. Last lesson that I'm going to touch on briefly. If you can't lead yourself, then it's impossible that you'll have the ability to lead others. The leaders I admire put the interests of their people first. That is the key item on their agenda. They see themselves as the architects, in a human sense, of human possibility. Those are some of the things that are contained in chapters 5 to 8. Chapter 9, I sort of changed gear and wrote about leadership and service excellence. So many companies or organizations in South Africa, not only companies, many organizations in South Africa appear not to have the ability to satisfy and retain customers, never mind impress and delight them. Next chapter deals with my passion with leadership in marketing efficiency. And there you will see I sort of took the liberty at the beginning of that chapter to liken the role of a marketing director to that of a conductor of a big orchestra. Because that is what capable marketing people do. They know exactly how to use the different elements of the marketing mix. Second last chapter is about the role of business leaders in South Africa. At the beginning of that chapter, I declare my love for my country. I love my country. But there's a big difference between loving one's country and simultaneously not liking many of the things that are happening at present. And I say it with sadness in my heart. I love my country, but I find some of the current developments very disturbing. And I acknowledge all the achievements, but I'm concerned about the quality of leadership. But to sit on the sideline and to criticize will serve little purpose. And therefore, in that chapter, I advocate the acceptance by the business sector of co-responsibility. I express in the closing paragraph of that chapter the view that I still have hope. I still have hope. But I am concerned, and I say we have to put shoulder to the wheel and get involved. We cannot, as business people, afford to be selfish capitalists. We have to engage and connect. We have to make a bigger contribution. You'll be thankful to hear I'm going to talk about the last chapter. The last chapter contains, chapter 12, my closing thoughts on leadership. I amplify in that chapter the importance of leadership. To borrow a phrase from John Maxwell, everything rises and falls on leadership. The conclusion is as follows, that in terms of the new paradigm of leadership, influence comes from something a lot deeper than just positional power. It comes from the power of your ideals. It comes from the strength of your spirit. It comes from your humanity, your ability to capture the hearts and the minds of your people through servant leadership. It is a fundamental conclusion that leadership has got nothing to do with position or power or charisma or self-importance. It's got everything to do with influence, and the influence needs to be earned. I conclude that if we want to improve our leadership competency, we have to work at those competencies at three levels. The head, expanding our perspective, deepening our insight, broadening our knowledge base. The heart, our self-awareness, our principles, our compassion. And then the hands, our conduct. There needs to be alignment. Example is not one of the things influencing people, it is the only thing. What can I say with conviction about the book? I can say with conviction that I gave it my best shot. I can say with conviction that the key messages contained in the book are in line with what I believe in. What I believe in terms of leadership and business, and what I believe in terms of my approach to life. Thank you very much.